curriculum. She coordinates Stewardship Week and the National Poster and Photo Contests and manages the NACD marketplace. Her favorite part of her job is the daily connection with district staff, supporting their education and outreach efforts across the country. She was raised in a military family, and she enjoys reconnecting with regions from her past and possibly a future. She began her 20-year conservation career as a multi-district educator and later served as an elected supervisor, district manager, and statewide conservation education coordinator for West Virginia. With a background in education and curriculum development, Aimee creates adaptable, engaging resources that support locally led conservation efforts. She holds a master's degree in special education with a focus on multi-categorical disabilities, including blind, low vision, deaf, hard of hearing, and in her free time, she teaches advanced robotics to teens, enjoys hand-drawn illustrations, and she loves to travel. Now, without further ado, Aimee Figgatt.
Hey, everybody. Thanks so much for joining. That I didn't mean for my bio to be so long, but, I like to add a little bit of everything in there. If you know me, you already know that I'm chatty, and that doesn't stop with my writing. So I want to start with welcoming everybody. And before we dive into the Scotts Miracle-Gro Backyard Habitat Guide and talking about the Stewardship Week materials, I want to start out with just a little moment of outdoor safety. So for those of you who do enjoy your outdoors, and you're here, so obviously you do, I just want to put a little reminder out there that let's make sure that we use our sunscreen. Let's use our sunscreen. Let's use our sunblock. We're going to get out there. We're going to dig into the soils. We're going to be in our backyards. Might be on our farms. I see Ryan Britt is on here. He might be 1,000 acres from home on any given day. So let's be sure and wear our sunblock. I have twice had skin cancer, and very serious skin cancer, and just had it removed again. So I just want to put that out there first. Everybody, use your sunblock. Okay. So we're going to get started. So great news. NACD has joined up with Scotts Miracle-Gro, and we're going to be producing a backyard habitat guide. Now, with your backyard habitat guide, it's going to just be a small pocket reference journal, but we are going to add some fun items in it as well. So we'll have our stewardship materials, which of course reflect habitats this year for 2025. And we're going to have our field day guide, which is also going to be focused on habitats for instructors or for homeschools. That might be for scouts, that may be for schools, it may be especially for conservation districts. And you can actually put that out there to your community leaders and to your youth groups. So that's going to be coming out very soon. I just finished the cover page today, and I'm pretty excited about it. So it's a very simple print. You'll be able to print it off without using a lot of ink. So be watching for that. I do have written notes. So if you see me looking back and forth, I'm just trying to stay on task because, again, if you know me, you know that I can easily get off task as well. So our goal is always the same thing. Let's make conservation easy, fun, and meaningful wherever you are. If you're on a farm, if you are in an urban setting, if you're rural, suburban, any of that. If you're in downtown Williamson, Brooklyn, New York, we want to make sure that you're engaged and that conservation is enjoyable for you. So with Scotts, we want to make sure, okay, I just got a message that said my video is not showing. Can you raise your hand if the video's on?
I can see you, Aimee.
You can? Okay. Okay, so Ariel can see me. That's good enough. Okay, so we're gonna focus this guide towards homeowners, renters, any type of large landowners. So we're going all the way across who the district serves. So it's going to be the entire communities. We want to focus on parents, caregivers looking for outdoor activities, but this is also the guide for the adults as well. So let's jump to what we're going to find You're going to find step-by-step habitat ideas for all spaces, yards, patios, and even windowsills. Tips for attracting pollinators, birds, and other native wildlife. If you're like me, you tend to attract deer where you don't want them. And I hear a lot of people talking about, how am I getting rid of these mason bees? How do I get rid of mason bees? They're tearing up my deck. And my advice is always the same. Give them a place to go. You don't need to try to get rid of them. Give them a place to go. So we're fortunate to have the landmass here to be able to actually plant for habitat. But if you're in an urban setting, you may not be able to. So we're going to give you solutions for that as well. And we're going to find some plants in your region that are friendly to your beneficials, but maybe not so friendly to your destructors. So we're going to look at avoiding invasive species. We're going to very much focus on native species to your region. We're going to have a QR code for you to link to your regions. And we're going to look at rain-friendly landscaping because water needs a place to go. That's a huge focus with conservation. We've got to find a place. Where is our water going to shed? And so we're going to work on that as well. We'll have activities for the whole family. And I think that's really important. Families are looking for a way to do cost-effective events, or cost-effective projects with their children. We just don't have the income to spare these days on big, huge projects with families. So we're going to look at making this affordable. And I think that's a huge priority. We're going to have blank pages where you're going to be able to fill in your own design. And that's a lot of fun for grown-ups. And it's a lot of fun for children as well. So we're going to add that grafting paper where you can really kind of mark out your design. You can make copies of it. This is going to be available PDF online. So you'll just be able to download that and have as many copies as you want. So where are you going to find it? You're going to find it on the NACD website under the Marketplace Education Materials. And I'm sure that will be spread far and wide when it's available. Communications will put it out there. So make sure when you registered for this webinar, you had the options of registering for our publications. And I tell anyone, if you're interested in the Stewardship and Education program, be sure that you sign up for eResource. That is where all of our announcements go. So with the Scotts Miracle-Gro Foundation, our guide is going to really make a difference whether or not you have land. It doesn't matter if you have a small yard or if you live in an apartment, you're going to be able to make a difference. If you've got a patio, perfect. Community space, even better. We love to see that. We're going to offer creative ways to turn this into a thriving habitat. So we have small space solutions. We're going to have yard-friendly layouts and community tips as well. So you'll see visual examples. We're going to not put those in the book because we're going to look at space saving and printability. But the big thing that we'll do is we'll have those resources listed on our website for you. And I think that's the best way to do it. You just hit that QR and you're there. So you might be out in the yard or on the patio with a shovel or a trowel, and you think, oh, what was I going to do with this, or what will work with this? You just grab your phone and go right to that site, and that's going to help you out. So what we are looking at is habitat helpers that go beyond bees and butterflies. I think our big focus is on honeybees, save the bees, save the bees. People forget about our native bees. We focus on monarchs, which are my favorite butterfly, but we also have other butterflies that we need to look at conserving as well that are important, especially when you get into grasslands along, the middle America. You've got, butterflies are extremely important in those grasslands, not just for pollination, but also for food. That's all parts of a habitat. We're going to talk birds, we're going to talk frogs, or we're going to talk bats and beneficial beetles. We'll talk about soil organisms, and we're going to dive into all of it. But it's not just, again, going to be for the kids. It's going to be for the adults as well, because they also need to learn. So we're going to talk native versus invasive. How are we going to know the difference? A lot of us walk around with our phones And we might, pull up a plant app or just use Google search and take a picture and see what it is. I do that almost every day. I just did it yesterday and found a whole brand new invasive out in my yard. Well, I call it a yard. I live on a farm, but I've got a whole new invasive and it's flowering everywhere. And I didn't even know I had it until it flowered. So one more thing we've got to work on, and we don't have goats anymore. So we'll have to do biological or some kind of maybe mechanical brush control. We is not me, by the way, because I get poison ivy too easy. We're going to teach you about spotting invasive plants, but then what do you do? And we very much focus on our partners in our CS guidelines as far as how to get rid of invasives, be it mechanical, biological, chemical, whichever works best for you. We want you to be able to do that responsibly. So we'll link you out to their guidelines as well for their best management practices. We want to take you through choosing native alternatives. We all love those ornamental, flowering, beautiful, vegetation, but sometimes it may be not so great for your habitat. So we'll look at, supporting local pollinators, supporting local wildlife, local insects, what's going to fit your region, which is one of the priorities of this guide. We're going to use really simple visual cues to identify plant types and understand what their role is in your landscape. And the bonus to that is you're going to find space in your booklet to add your own notes about local invasives. And then again, you can scan the QR for your region specific plants, which we're going to be able to work with PFQF with our new seed program for that. And we'll also, of course, always work with our partners, federal partners in our CS. So in fact, invasives are so strong right now where I'm at. From the corner of my eye, I can see out my window, and all of these flowering invasives are out there just waving around in the wind. And as beautiful as they are, and I'm a beekeeper, I know that they're great for the bees. I'm gonna have to let them go. I have to practice what I put on paper myself. So we'll do that. So we're going to jump into WaterWise and Wildlife Smart Landscaping. I live in Appalachia. Everything we have is wildlife landscaping because it's a free-for-all here. And if you live in an area where you have deer, you also have wildlife landscape, no matter what you're providing. So we will talk about, though, we'll start with WaterWise. We're going to talk about miniature rain gardens for the home or community rain gardens, something that's safe, efficient, and works. Rain gardens can be kind of a touchy subject because with the best management practice, you have to make sure you get it right. If you don't get it right, you can actually reverse what you're trying to do. So we want to make sure that you get that right, and we're going to link you out to those resources. Mulch and ground covers. We're going to talk about mulch and ground covers. You can bring some bad things in with mulch, but then again, you can preserve some great things with mulch. Ground covers are another great way for no-till or for protecting that bare soil. We really want to do that. That's something that I practice at home as well, and maybe that's something you all can practice as well. So we'll look at water stations for birds, insects, and amphibians. I was not a big fan of amphibians throughout most of my life, but now I absolutely love them. And, these items don't have to become a mosquito trap. And these are you need these for eating these mosquitoes. So if you live in areas that are prone to mosquitoes, this is going to be great for you. And how are we going to avoid chemical runoff? One of the things that I learned serving here in West Virginia throughout my career is water brings chemical runoff, and that's something we want to avoid. Can we avoid chemicals? No, not always. We can't, not everyone's in the position to be able to go all organic. So what we want to promote is responsible use of lawn and farm fertilizers and chemicals. We can do this as long as we just follow those best management practices. Let's do our favorite DIY habitat projects. Those are always fun. We do some of those each year with our education materials. Pollinator pudding dishes, anyone? These will use shallow containers and natural minerals. Where you're looking at brush piles and log habitats. That's something that our federal partners promote, and that's something that we really love. And if you're in a neighborhood with an HOA, clearly you're not going to be able to have a brush pile or a log habitat. But if you're in an area where you can, that can provide beneficial habitat to little small animals. Upcycled bird feeders, bee houses, these can work in some areas, not all. In certain territories, you actually cannot put bird houses out because, they're trying to promote the native nesting sites and trying to deter the invasive birds from nesting. So, again, we'll base that on region. And then, of course, compost. Compost is a touchy subject in certain places, but it is doable in many. And we want to teach you how to do that responsibly, keep clean compost, and make sure that you're using it appropriately as well. So that's going to be part of it. And of course, with Scotts Miracle-Gro, we're going to dive into what is available commercially to help these folks really get an edge on their backyard gardens, their habitats, their grasses, even if it's, from a lawn and on. We're going to try to cover as much as we can. So it'll be a very intense guide. I'm looking forward to writing it, but I'm a little bit scared too. So mini shelters or tunnels. This is something that we do with the brush piles, but if you're in an area where you can always work with children in your family or maybe the neighborhood kids if you're doing a community garden, and you can provide mini shelters for small mammals and amphibians. Something as simple as a broken flower pot makes a wonderful frog habitat. Ask me how I know. I just pulled up a broken flower pot out in my garden yesterday and found a little teeny tiny frog, and it scared my dogs to death because farm dogs they got a level 0 yesterday for their farm dog abilities because the frog scared them. So let's talk about your regions. I'm going to just stop for 1 second. And Marquita, is there any questions? Does anybody have a hand raised or anything? I know it's a lot of information quickly, just making sure.
No questions as of yet and no hands.
Okay. Okay. So I can't see the chat. So if anybody has a pressing question, feel free to raise your hand. Otherwise, we'll just keep going. So we do have Q&A at the end, but it'd be like me, take notes and then you can get back to it. So let's talk about regional habitats. One of the most exciting parts of this guide is that it's going to connect you with resources specific to your climate region and your zone. So you're going to have QR codes and web links. What we don't put in the guide itself, we will provide through the non-print version on our website. You're going to have your blank notes, of course, that section to personalize your guide. And this is going to be designed for the entire U.S. in all territories. So this goes from the gardens of Florida to the Pacific Island coastal habitats and everywhere in between. As we said in the bio, I'm a military brat, so I did kind of live almost everywhere in between. Guam, Alaska, all along the East Coast, Texas. We've been everywhere. So I'm very excited to kind of get back to my roots on this. So, this flexibility means if you're in Kansas, Guam, New York, or Nevada, we're going to have something for you. And we're very excited to put that out there. So we're going to have family and classroom activities. Nature education doesn't have to be complicated. And since we're providing this to our districts to then provide to their communities, which is truly our goal. We don't step beyond the districts to go out into your communities. We're providing this to you, the districts, to then provide to your communities. And that nature-based, that education does not have to be complicated. The guide is going to be simple. It's going to be science-based activities, observation challenges. So if you choose to do this as, for the education side of things, we can get families exploring their backyards. We can get community cleanup and planting days and teachers looking at habitat learning extensions. Teachers desperately want extensions. And when you provide that to them, they do use it. So, we can look at creating wildlife journals for students. We'll have those extension activities, track when you visit native gardens, observe and map sunlight, shade, soil types. This is something we all have to do if you do plant. We've got to say, okay, well, it's November. Where's my sun now? It's June. Where's my sun now? Because it's not going to come and go at the same spot all throughout the year. We all know that. So we're going to conduct backyard biodiversity counts. That means where are we starting and where are we ending? And I was inspired to do that with our federal partners in our CS plan, where we did a 5-year plan and we kind of started out with, well, there's been a lot of tree cutting, there's been a lot of constant mowing, there's been a lot of extra grazing on our farm. 5 years later, all I can hear constantly is birds all day long. And so I thought, that would be great to then scale that down to a backyard capable project and go from there and see, what can we do with our goals? What can your 1 year, 3 year, and 5 year goal be? So the plus side of things is how many of you have neighbors? How many of you have neighbors that you really kind of you have to coexist with? So we're going to look at ways to win over our neighbors. So transforming your yard does not always mean sacrificing the beauty or creating confusion. Sometimes what you can do is put together something that's inspiring so you can expand your habitat choices. You can work with your neighbors in a positive and inspiring way. Ways to make your native plants look purposeful. We think of permaculture, but are we thinking of native permaculture? And how can it be attractive? How can we use edging, signage design? Because not everybody lives where you can just go out and do what you want in your yard. Some people have HOAs and they have to follow those rules. So we want to make sure to stay within those parameters for those folks as well. So conversation starters, what if your neighbor comes over and, has their drink in their hand and says, what exactly are you doing out here all the time? You can then explain to them and share the program with them, and maybe it's something they may want to invest in as well. So advice on community habitats or garden programs. Again, we're going back to that community aspect because not everyone lives in a neighborhood with an HOA either. A lot of people live in apartments. A lot of people live in cityscapes. It's just as important. For availability and distribution, the Backyard Habitat for Natural Resource Conservation, which that's not the official name of it, that's just what it actually is, will be available this summer. It will be, again, on NACD's Marketplace. Our goal is to have it on the Marketplace by July 1. And then a month after that, we're going to have our stewardship and education materials for 2026 available as well. This will be offered in downloadable PDF format. We are looking at the print options. We're hoping for a spiral bound because it'll be a little thicker this time. And so those are just, options that we're still looking at. This will be available, of course, to anyone through NACD Marketplace, but our focus is going to be for local-led conservation districts. So these conservation districts can provide this resource to their communities when they're doing outreach events or maybe sending it on to schools, community programs, senior centers, wherever you like to go, the local feed store. I've been known to hang out at the local feed store a time or three. They've got great beef jerky and candy all the time. So this can be distributed really anywhere that your conservation district serves. So I'm going to pause there and just give a little plug to our education materials, because again, we do have our 2025 education materials available now through the NACD website free. You can download those or you can order printed, and that's going to be at nacdnet.org. And you're just going to go to Marketplace. You'll find all of your resources there. And I will pause there for any questions.
So we have one. We want to see, very exciting stuff. And just to reiterate, the resources will be available. Did you give a timeline?
Our goal is July the 1st to have it online July the 1st.
Okay. And that's all we had.
I can see the chat now. So my computer does not have a microphone that works very well. So I use my headphones with my cell phone for sound, and then I use my computer with an external camera for pictures. So you will see two Aimees. I don't have a twin. Um, that's my alter ego over there hiking in Arizona. And then, of course, this is where I live. This is the mountain state. So they're both me. So sorry for the confusion for those who could only see my photo and not the video. Did we have any questions about the backyard habitat guide or suggestions on what you would like to see in it? And when? So I either did really well or really confused folks.
No, we have one more question, and I
Okay.
just wanted to reiterate. It says, so is this an NACD publication or is it a Scotts Miracle-Gro publication? So, yeah. No, this is NACD.
Can I jump
I
in
think,
with a little background?
yes, I was actually going to defer to you, Ariel. So yes, Ariel, please jump in.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Veronica, for that question. I'm Ariel Rivers, NACD's Director of Membership Engagement, and we've had a long-running relationship with the Scotts Miracle-Gro Foundation since approximately 2014. They've provided us with a lot of funding to be able to continue to provide educational resources for districts, specifically focused on backyard conservation as well as urban habitat conservation, stormwater management, et cetera, as well. And so the relationship that we have with them currently allows us to not only provide these urban and community conservation webinars, but it also helps support our work that Aimee's doing through stewardship and education to create some of these materials. So the guide is supported by Scotts, but the content is developed by Aimee as well as through her relationships with others and what she hears from all of you in the districts and the type of information that all of you need to be able to support your clients. So it is, as Marquita said, it is an NACD publication that again is supported through our relationship with Scotts. And we cannot thank them enough, of course, for that support. We cannot do the work that we do on behalf of our members without some of our partnerships like this one with Scotts. So of course, we're happy to answer any other questions, but I did just want to give a little bit of that background so that I can encourage all of you as you see more of these urban and community webinars coming down the pipeline. There will be at least 2 more this fiscal year. Please share those out with people in your district. And we do have the archive of most of the webinars dating back to 2014 on our YouTube as well. And those still have a lot of really great examples of district projects through time that, you know, as you're working on biodiversity conservation, doesn't matter if you did it in 2014 or if you did it now, some of the science might change, but the practices typically do not. So a lot of really good information on those videos that are on YouTube as well. So thank you for the question.
The one thing that I want to reiterate is 80% of what I write comes from our districts, comes from you. I am one person here on the other end of your computer and at the other end of your phone and at the other end of your emails. And I take your calls and I answer your emails. Anyone that's ever worked with me will certainly back that up. I will take your calls. I will listen to what you need, to what your concerns are, to what you have regionally going on. And I'll make it happen to the absolute best of my ability. So it is really important that the districts reach out to me, communicate with me what your needs are, and especially, you know, with your outreach and with your education, not just for children, but for adults as well. You know, that's what we're here for. I'll always connect back. You know, you can reach me through number one, your region reps. That's a great way to do it because then that keeps them informed. So when you start out, you know, reach out to your region rep and say, hey, you know, I've got these questions for education. let's get in touch with Aimee. Or, if you aren't real sure who that is or you've not worked with them, reach out to me. Whenever I respond, I always connect them. I actually messaged Beth the other day. I was like, hey, just making sure you have this region, right? Because I'm getting ready to message someone back and I want to connect you. So, that's something that's really important. And I just can't express that enough. I can't serve you without knowing what your need is. And it's very important that you reach out to me and let me know, what's going on in your region. I mean, I didn't know about the ornamental turtle of Kansas until just a few months ago when I helped someone put together a coloring page for the ornamental turtle of Kansas. So these are all just little things that we do to help our districts, to help our membership, and to just make things great. And that's really what's very important. I'm pausing for Marquita. I think she's got to come off mute there real quick. Sorry.
Okay, so I wanted to, great job, Aimee. Thank you so much. Wanted to see if there was any more questions in the chat. I think that we answered all of them that we have in the, let's see. Okay, right. So yeah, do we have any more questions?
I think we're good. I definitely see some folks on here that I know. My former supervisor and boss, Jennifer Skaggs, she joined us today. Hey, Jennifer, it's good to see you. And Ryan Britt, I see here we've got the VP2 on here. So second vice president. I was reading that. I was like, what is VP2? And then it dawned on me what it meant. So, hey, Ryan, and just so you know, my husband and I were talking about Ryan just yesterday and, talking about these large farms and what it takes really equipment wise to run the farms. And I'm like, I always think of Ryan when I think that because he's just got so much mass that he's got to take care of. So I really do appreciate you folks jumping on, supporting this.
It looks like nothing else in the chat. So I do want to say thank you again, Aimee. Like they mentioned in the chat, this is really exciting stuff. And I like how you categorize it by region and district, and absolutely incredible with everything else that you have going on from your bio that I read earlier. So if nothing else, thanks again, everybody, for joining us. And I'll see you all at the next Scotts Miracle-Gro webinar. Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.